Hello and welcome to Learning Outcomes Leaders, brought to you by Genio. I'm James. And I'm Scott, and on this podcast you'll hear us chatting to higher education professionals who can talk the talk about how they've been there and done it.
We'll discuss some of their proudest and most ambitious projects and explore the most effective ways in which they've helped to improve and elevate their students' experience. In this episode, we're joined by Heather Chapman, Senior Director of Data and Analytics at Weber State University, to discuss why we need to look beyond academic grades and start using co-curricular data to measure true student success. We explore how predictive analytics can unlock meaningful insights into the campus experience and help institutions support students more effectively. Want to find out more? Let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Genio podcast. We're joined here today by Heather Chapman, who is the Senior Director of Data and Analytics at Weber State University. Heather, thank you so much for joining us today. It'd be great if you could just introduce yourself, tell us a bit about your origin story, what brought you into higher education in the first place.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm Heather. My background is actually in psychology. I went through my undergrad, didn't really know what I wanted to do after that. Got into grad school and figured out that I was really pretty good at statistics and I liked it and it was good. And so I focused on that as I went through grad school and came out kind of before like the data science boom and before the like data analytics boom. And so there were kind of limited choice options. I got into an institutional research analyst position at an institution of higher education. And my background, like I love education. I bleed education. It's my passion. So that's really where I was looking. And that's kind of what got me to where I am today, was kind of this chance job as an institutional research analyst. Getting into that, it became apparent very quickly that people didn't really care what you did necessarily, in terms of like all the fancy analyses that I learned in grad school. What really mattered was whether I could tell the good story. And so that really is where my career trajectory took off from there. From that point, I've just been focused on trying to take these really complicated analyses for people, no matter what it is about, and turn those into a story that resonates with people that don't have a statistics background or don't have a data background or don't do that as their day-to-day job. So that is what has gotten me where I am in my career and kind of been my focus.
Really interesting. Thanks for that, Heather. I'm just interested because I saw you mentioned your psychology degree, and I'm by no stretch, a doctor in psychology, but I also did a psychology degree, and I found the statistics element really daunting. So that was just something that, and I know a lot of people had similar experiences. Although I could do the other modules, I found stats daunting. So was that something that you instantly took a liking to and like focused on during your psychology degree, or was it kind of like an afterthought?
Yeah, no, not as an undergrad for sure. As an undergrad, I was like this little lost soul because I didn't know what, in any field you have like these sub areas like cognition or social psych or whatever, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I got into this program that was a research and evaluation focused program. And so part of that was research design. So I learned a lot of that, learned how to run evaluations, and then statistics was like half of it. So it wasn't until like year 2 of that I was like, oh, this is why I didn't know what I wanted to be, because I'm actually really good at the numbers. And so it just kind of came. And actually, I think it was one of my professors that was like, will you come be this, this grad assistant role? And I was like, that's in stats. And he was like, well, yeah, you're really good at those. And so it was really kind of this, again, like I've had a lot of these just like fortuitous things that I've fallen into and said yes to these things that have really shaped me. So no, by no means did I go into it in my first or even second or even third stats class and go, oh yeah, this is what I want to be when I grow up. I grew into it, but it all makes sense looking backwards, but looking forward, I was like, I don't know about this. So
yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, if you're kind of into the numbers side of it, I always found the research side interesting, but it's the numbers that can be so daunting. But yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I always found maths and statistics so overwhelming. As a student, I stopped maths at high school, and it was something that never
never sort of piqued my interest much until sort of the last few years. And when you said about using statistics to tell a story, I think
Mm.
it's only really in the last few years of my life where I've actually realized the power of that and how you can really start building that picture for people specifically, like me that doesn't necessarily have the overall grasp of how we got to those statistics, but being able to say, here is the actual background methodology and the ideas behind it, and this is our findings and potential recommendations. How have you found that sort of the telling the story side of things? Because I'd imagine that you have two types of people, maybe one being like, great, all these statistics, I want to know exactly what analyses you use, what were your
Yes.
methodologies, and then the other that went
Mm.
sort of goes, no, I don't know, it's all numbers. How do you find that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there's also a third person that is the person that really likes numbers, but doesn't necessarily always use them in the best
Yeah.
way possible, right? That digs in. So, um, I kind of always take like a lowest common denominator approach. The good thing about stats, honestly, I'll try not to make this long, but is
Mm.
it's logic. It's a lot more logic than it is math. So this is actually something I teach as well, and I teach statistics. And one of the things, like the thing I say on the first day is like, how many of you are afraid because you think this is a math class? And they all raise their hand, and I say, well, like lucky for you, it's not. It's a logic class, really. Because for most people, like it doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter. It matters that we followed the right processes. So for most people, if you have someone like me in your background, like doing work in the background, I mean, you can get around like the complexities of it. You can trust that somebody like me is going to be like, well, I think we should use X, Y, or Z method. Um, and then you can just focus on what do I do with this? And that's the part that is the hardest in some ways, but also I think where like the casual user can put their effort. For me, the critical piece is to kind of hide all those details. You're right that you will have those people. You'll have but it's like three, right? Like
Yeah.
on my
Yeah.
campus of a couple thousand people, like there's probably like five that want to know all those details, and they're probably also stat teachers or something. But so you've got those that want to do uh that like know everything about the model and what we did and how we decided which model to use. And so you need to have that information somewhere so that people can check you, right? It's like a reference. But beyond that, it's okay. Nobody wants me to talk about like the root mean square error approximation. Like nobody wants me to talk about that. What they want me to do is say, okay, what should I take from this? So what we've done and really focused on is like taking those predictive models and making them look like an everyday dashboard so that we hide away the details in like a specs document or something like that, where people can go and look them up and check us and whatnot if they want to. But then people that are accustomed to playing in our dashboards, like our everyday, demographic dashboards or trend dashboards or whatever, they can go to this dashboard and say, okay, well, let's see what the predicted, what happens if we combine these different metrics or these different demographics. So I can see what is the effect if I have these that are my struggling learners. Um, what happens if I give them a job on campus? And people can see, oh, the benefit of that is this. And so it's a long path, but we've been able to do I think pretty good work with taking all of that complex stuff, having it built in the background, and then letting a basic, well, I mean, it's not basic, but like from the outside looking in, it looks like a basic dashboard that everybody's used to. So that's the approach that we've taken.
Mm.
And we've had limited success. So like there's pluses and minuses on that. And we still have a long way to go because it's not like you just put it out there and then people come and they get all the insights. Like you still have to have training, and we're still we're still perfecting things. Let's just say that.
Yeah. It's fascinating because, it's got the potential to be really impactful though, doesn't it? If it
Mhm.
guides how higher education operates or, how
Yes.
to support students. So I'm quite interested then, what are the kind of metrics that you're using, or like how, or what kind of variables are you measuring to predict like student outcomes and things?
Yeah, absolutely. So we really have four models that we're focused on. And then there's always variations, but I mean in higher education, it's all about enrollment. So we're open enrollment, so we get a lot of over applications. So we will get 10,000 applications for fall, and maybe like 3,500 or 4,000 of those will actually come. So we have one for enrollment, like who's coming. We have one for retention, who's staying after that first year, and then we have one for graduation. We've also gone into engagement to look at what is the impact of engagement on students and how protective is that. So each of those models has different metrics that we've looked at. We look at all of the basic ones that you would think of, right? Like sex or ethnicity or Pell eligibility or age. I think all the things that people would normally think of. Maybe their declared major or their declared college of their major, things like that. We've also looked at things like economic impacts. So for instance, in some of our models, we've looked at what's the impact of the economic state of the state that we are in or of the nation, and look to see if those have an impact, because we find that like our enrollments go up when the economy starts struggling. And so we have tried to model some of that. We model things like their distance from our campus, where they're coming from, so we can try and see if are there pockets that we should target. We look at whether they work on campus, whether they seek out advising, what is their preparedness when they come that first day and walk in the door. Are they, do they need like some of our remedial math or developmental math or English courses, some of those sorts of things. So it's a long list. We probably use, I don't even know, maybe like, depending on the model, somewhere between like 30 and 40 variables in the model, and then just kind of play with it and see what we want to use.
So it's really interesting. So I think there's been a real sort of boom of this statistical analysis. I think you mentioned this earlier, right? You came into the industry just before this sort of this boom in people realizing how valuable this data is. On a couple of previous episodes that we've done, we sort of touched on similar sort of things. We met with Amanda Hagman, who works at Utah State University. One of the things that they found that really boosted student retention through the sense of belonging was if a student had attended one sports game. It didn't matter what sport or anything like that. But because that sense of belonging was there and you didn't feel like a number anymore, that was huge. So one of their things that they put in place was any freshman can get a free ticket and a free drink to a sports game to really sort of dial in on that big impact. And then we spoke with David Evans at University of Science and Arts, Oklahoma. Tiny school, about 800 students in total, very sort of localized student population. And one of the things that they were able to do is actually look at what particular schools a student might have gone to, and then actually start over the years being able to say, well, so and so high school, those students typically struggle with maths more than others. So maybe we need to put them in for classes like that. So some really sort of different ways to sort of look at it. What have been some of the most, I guess, surprising findings that you've had so far that you didn't realize would have such a big impact on students?
I can get really geeky about this, so I'll try and tone it down. But
let's get geeky. I like it.
The one I'll start with is, I'll try and be brief, but we have this narrative on our campus because I mentioned we are open enrollment, and so we take anyone. You just send us an application, we will take you, which means we get everyone. So we get, students that are really prepared and could go anywhere and for some reason come here, they want to stay here. And then we get people that are in the middle, and then we get those people that are like struggling, people that may have struggled through high school, or they may have tried like a community college or like a tech college first. And those folks will often come in. I mentioned this before, we call them developmentally placed in math or developmentally placed in English. We had this narrative on campus that it was the developmentally placed math students that were struggling. And it like existed like before I got here, it existed like while I was here. And then we ran these analyses and we discovered like, no, that is not what the problem is. It's those students that are developmentally placed in both English and math. And so that was really a game changer for us. We were able to kind of take that like colloquial, like common sense knowledge that people run with a lot, that it was these developmentally placed math kids or students that were really struggling, because we would always have these narratives like, oh, some of these students are taking 8 times to get through math. And like, yeah, you have those outliers, but this wasn't the true story. So we were able to show that actually it's math and English, and start a whole program. So we call it Wildcat Scholars, and we bring in these students that are placed in developmental math and English, and put them into, if they want, it's opt in, but into a cohort that follows them for the entire first year. And we've had really good success rates. We took our persistence rates, from like 20 or 25% up to like 60% in these students. So that's probably the one I think that we've been most excited about. But we've also used it for a couple of other things. So for instance, we were able to show that meeting with an advisor. So because we're open enrollment, there's some really weird ways that gets like indoctrinated across the campus, I guess. And one of those was like, well, we're open enrollment, therefore we can't force people to go to advising, or we can't, like, we were really like hesitant to say this is required of any of our students. And so we were able to use the analyses that we ran to say, well, those students that attend advising in their first semester are retaining at this ridiculous rate, like 85% or something like that. So we were able to then get funding for additional advisors so that we could make our both new student orientation and mandatory first year advising. We were able to launch both of those programs, which was for us something that we had never done before.
Yeah.
I could probably go on, but maybe I'll stop there just in case.
How does that the meeting advising? So you said that that's now mandatory for first year students. Is that how often do students have to meet with the advisors and things like that? How does that work?
They have to meet with them as they're coming in. So we
Yeah.
haven't moved it beyond that yet to like they need like the second year advising or even a second semester advising. But what we're hoping for, and this has fall 2024 was the first semester that we had mandatory advising.
Yeah.
And so we haven't really seen there hasn't been quite enough time for us to be able to see all of the benefits of it. So we haven't done the analyses yet, although we should be able to now. So I don't really know. The preliminary results were positive, but we don't know yet. So these students basically they complete their new student orientation, and then the last part of that is that they have to meet with an advisor so that we can just get them set up for the right classes. Because what we were finding with our students is a lot of them would take like, I don't know, like anatomy and their developmental math and their like, I don't know, like whatever other, like history. History is really hard. Intro history is really hard on our campus. And then they would find themselves failing out. And so we have used that. We do know that like our preliminary stuff shows that we've been able to kind of help students take better schedules their first year and kind of teach them more about the tools. Again, we'll see if that actually works, but that's really how it's been operationalized at this point.
I really like that as an idea. I think one of the challenges that we've seen, I think we spoke about this on a previous episode, and I've spoke to quite a lot of people about this, is tutoring can be really great, but one of the challenges that sometimes occurs is it's the students that go to the tutoring and the advising appointments tend to be the ones at 4.0 GPA. And so it's great to have that support for them, but the biggest impact that we want to have, those students maybe aren't as aware of the support or don't want to go to that support level. I know even for myself at university, I wasn't fully aware as a student of all the different things that were available to me. I would have done so much better at college if I was aware of all the different things that were there. I'd walk past an office and all I needed to do was turn my head and read it.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's a challenge. Like most of our campuses run like little cities. And so when you think about that, like you think about moving to a new home or an apartment or something like that, and you have to turn on your water and do your garbage and like get the utilities on and get them all transferred and all of that. It's like it's kind of daunting. And a campus is really, really similar. Like there's just so many offices you have to hit, and we don't have the same understanding as like as people or as like coming in, right? Like you don't know what you don't know in that situation. So yeah, I hear you.
Mhm. Fantastic. Well, I'll just ask like a next question that it kind of follows on a little bit. But, is there a kind of student outcomes project that you're most proud of? And why was it that you wanted to pursue that?
Let me think
Put
how
your-
to answer this one, because I probably can answer it in a couple ways. I think I'm most proud of what we've been able to do to build it out. I don't know if that's what you're seeking. So I will answer this, and then I can answer it a different way if you'd rather. But
Whatever
when I
suits.
started, it was completely grassroots. It was me, and this was my background. It wasn't what I was hired to do, but it was my background. So I believed in it, and so I would just push these little projects here and there and be like, "Look, did you know this?" And then I got some interest and got a couple other people on board, and we did a couple of these like large, like enterprise type analyses, and got more people interested. And then honestly, COVID hit, and a local company reached out and was like, "Hey, we'll give you this product for free during COVID, so you can try it out." And because we're trying to help people, like it was good marketing for them. So I did that and built, and for that I was actually be able to take this to like a machine learning model, not just like a traditional predictive analytics model. So it was a more robust model, like a stronger model. And so I did that, and I was able to show like such greater outcomes, and like just much stronger analyses. And so was able to like build up funding then to buy this tool, and then like from there it's just like I could keep going, but we've added a full-time FTE specific to machine learning, which is like kind of I'm really proud of that. We've moved to like a Python based model and have built the infrastructure into our databases so that we can load our results in there, easily update them, and then have those just auto populate and auto update our Tableau dashboards. So like there's all sorts of things like that for the infrastructure that I'm really, really proud of, because it just started as such a like hobby. And now we're on the brink. We're not there yet, but we're like on the brink. I can feel us like we're pushing over the end of the bottom of the hill, right? Or the top of the hill, so that we can just start rolling to be able to provide people with some really good like foundation to kind of seek out the students that we should be helping, and see some really like proactive ways to do that rather than just guessing. So like we're right at the precipice of that.
It's so exciting. I think that being able to turn something from sort of a project that you're interested in to all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, it's took a long time and a lot of
Yeah.
effort to go into that, but to get to a point where now you can have this data sort of basically live running through to all these different dashboards, and allow it to become more of a self-serve sort of thing for individual departments to come in is so powerful. We've sort of been on a similar journey ourselves with data, and it's amazing what you can do knowing that that data is available to you. So, whether it's how a student's performing in this sort of particular state or whatever that might be on a large scale, being able to sort of look at these things and constantly iterate rather than, before this sort of thing, you're doing annual reviews as an
Yeah.
institution going, oh, 2,000 students dropped out.
Mm.
Why? You can see those early signs now, and things like that. I wonder what were sort of some of the main challenges or blockers you've had to something like that, because it's a total mind shift for the institution, I guess, or a mindset shift. What
Yeah,
sort of things did you come across?
yeah, that's a great question. And one that I think we will always be dealing with. I think what I think that the main problem that we have today when it comes to data is like an overabundance of data. So we're victims of our own success. We've been very successful at getting people dashboards, and like we can answer the most minute questions at this point, and not even they don't like our faculty and staff don't really need us for that. They have dashboards out there. They can answer so many questions. And that brings more questions and more questions and more questions. So eventually you get this kind of glut of dashboards where you've got there's a ton of dashboards and they can do so many things. And so I would say that is probably our biggest challenge now, is even when we have these predictive things, where people can look and see specifically like, okay, here are my murky middles kids and or students, and this is what we can what we should be focusing on with them, that gets lost in a lot of the noise. And particularly speaking about like predictives, like people will, human nature, I think, is to go with a trend, because people can understand that and they can talk about it. And so when I provide them with something that they can't validate in a trend, then that's a challenge, because they'll say, well, but the data shows this. We've grown in this and this, and you're saying that that's actually bad or whatever. And so there's this cross play between just our like descriptive dashboards and these predictive results, and trying to figure out how to talk to people in a manner that helps them to use the two together, and not see them, because we have to change the narrative in their head, right? When you're looking at X, Y, or Z dashboard, we've taught them and they've learned, okay, this is how I use trends. This is how I use, these data over here. But we're still in the process of teaching them, how do I use this predicted data? And so it's it's a little bit of a shift in what we've already taught them. And I think that that is a challenge. Because it's like this new schema or this new frame of reference that they need to just learn. And so it is it's slow in that regard.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting, because it's not just kind of what the stats suggestion is suggesting, sorry, it's also like uncertainty then for people that have always worked in a certain way or understood the data and the trends in a certain way. And it's something to adapt to. So I can imagine that is the rest of the challenge almost, once you've actually got them statistics. But yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and I'll just sorry,
No,
but
absolutely. Go
like
ahead.
both of you mentioned, when I said, "Oh yeah, I do stats," both of you said, "Yeah, like I didn't do well at maths. I wasn't thrilled about stat." And that's also kind of what we battle. So they go into it thinking, "I don't know how to do this." And so they default back to this thing that they've already done, even though they might be able to get a little bit more information or like more precise information. So that's what we're dealing with. Like most people have the reaction that you two had, like, this is hard. I don't know how to do it. I'm not good enough, right? It's like that imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough to deal with this. And so it's addressing that, and continuing to make it be as accessible as possible.
So it's a shame though. Sorry, James, not to interrupt. So it's a massive shame, because I saw so many people that were doing the so I did research for a bit. I was a research assistant, and very data heavy. And that was something that I was not particularly confident on, but I was like, I need to build my knowledge and skills when it comes to just understanding data, because a lot of it is, of course, is doing like statistical analyses, but I need a lot of support with it. So I mean, it's how do you address that with people? Like, how do you encourage them and give them the belief that they can do it? I know it's so complex. It's such a, it's not one answer fits all, but yeah, it's just a tricky one.
Yeah. And data is like gold. Like, we had a gold rush and now we're in a data rush. And the companies that can leverage that, are the ones that are succeeding. And at least in the US, like higher ed, it's about to get hard for all of us out here. And for some people, it's already hard. We're competing for enrollments, and we're competing for, dollars like all of the time. So I think higher ed is naturally going to like contract in terms of how many like institutions and things like that are out there. And I'm telling you that like the institutions that are able to harness this and embrace it and accept it and embrace the data and use the data to drive who they should be going after and what they should be doing for those students to get them to succeed. Like those are the institutions that are going to be like flush, right? They're going to have such success, and then that success is just going to grow. So like that's why it's important, right? For me, again, I can get so geeky about these things, but like that's like I could not say that strongly enough. The institutions that take the time for this are going to be the ones that are going to be able to kind of ride this contraction in the US. So from my point of view, of course.
We talk about this a lot, as a business really, and the enrollment cliff that's coming
Yes.
very soon, and we're already seeing the particularly sort of small private liberal arts colleges
Yes.
that are closing, merging, seemingly monthly, unfortunately at the moment, and so we've had this huge expansion of numbers of institutions and numbers of students going to college, but then as the demographics of students in terms of numbers are changing, we're seeing really big changes in terms of who's going to university, and we've started calling non-traditional students now the new majority, because when we start looking at that data, it is so many first generation students, it's students with disabilities, for example, working students, parents, all coming back into education. And so not only is the numbers changing, but it's actually that entire makeup of the population. So yeah, I completely agree with you in terms of the institutions that are actually really looking at that data and really being flexible with what they do next, rather than going, well, this worked from 2010 to 2020,
Yeah.
so we're going to keep doing that. And then COVID hit and things are different, but we don't know why. But that worked before. It's a really difficult balance to strike. You've got all these years of knowledge, and then the world seems to have changed immediately. What what have you seen so far the institution has had to do, or the industry's had to do, in the face of the enrollment cliff and things, I guess, post-COVID, where it's really sort of changed?
Yeah, this is a great questions, friends. Yeah, so I think for us, a lot of mm, okay. I think for us, we've really kind of doubled down on our local relationships. So most of our people are in-state. So I would say like we're 85 or 90% in-state. So we get some outsiders, and I might be overestimating that, but so we've really tried to work on our relationships with like our community colleges and our tech colleges. We've also worked in the state to do things like direct admissions, which is not new, but it's kind of new for us, and some things like that to try and remove barriers for students, and try and go after those, because I think you're absolutely right. The demographic is changing. I don't know when the dust all settles what it will look like, but I think that we are seeing, and I'm not like unique in saying this, but we are also seeing it, that like the traditional like 1980s or whatever student, like the white middle class student coming to school, those are the students I think that are more skeptical these days. And so
Yeah.
for us, we're seeing gains in our other entities. So our next demographic here where I am is our Hispanic group, and we're seeing gains there. We're seeing gains in our first gen. We're seeing gains in some of these different areas that we would have traditionally had to really like strive to recruit, if that makes sense. Which I think is wonderful. I think we still have a lot now, like because things are shifting, we have to figure out how to get to those students that have become like, I don't know if like skeptical or disenfranchised, or like I'm not sure what it is, but we've I don't know that we have an answer for that, but we're gonna have to start figuring that out. I'll also just point out like another area is those that have some college but no degree. And I think that's also a buzzword currently out there, but like I'll just throw out some numbers. Like we're open enrollment, we're fairly large. So I was looking the other day, and we have like about 20,000 students over the last like 5 years that have stopped out at some point. They came for a semester or longer, and they've stopped out and didn't go anywhere else, right? We can see that through National Student Clearinghouse. They didn't go anywhere. So they came to college, they tried it out, and something happened, and they thought, this is not for me. And so that is also, I think, a really big opportunity for us to go out there and figure out like what is going on with these folks. What is it that has happened? Is it that they came and that like life happened and something, so they had to go a different direction? Or is it that they came and they had a bad experience, or like just those like mental health challenges of like I'm coming in and I'm thinking I'm not good enough for this. And so the stress of that is a lot, especially for young folks in their 20s, right? Um, anyway, I think that's a really big population that we could go after. And many of them started and tried when they were 18, and now they're maybe older. So then, yes, we get that non-traditional majority, like you talked about. So I think all of that is in play now. And we as institutions, at least where I am, we're going to have to be creative, because traditional. I feel like we give lip service to this where we say we know we're changing. And then when we look at how we're organized as institutions, we're still open 9 to 5, and we're, not open on the weekends, and we're still primarily face to face from the hours of 9 to 2, and like there are all these things that we have to deal with to address the issues that these students are facing, or that like these students that have left, the reasons that they left. Like we've got to have this like reckoning of like we are giving lip service to this idea that we're no longer the same institutions. We've got to make our services and everything like that change in the same direction.
Yeah, I had some really good conversations with people. I was at Student Success US conference in Atlanta a couple of months ago, and the stop out students were something that were coming up quite a lot, where we were seeing they were sort of seeing two types of students. It was the new students fresh out of high school that got to university and have missed a lot of college through COVID, a lot of high school, sorry, through COVID, and so their critical thinking skills, study skills are actually lower than students of previous years, and it gets quite daunting, and they go, I don't think I can do this, don't get the support they need, and stop out. You've then also got those others where, with things like the cost of living and inflation going up, people going, actually, I can't afford to be here. I need to be at work for longer. And that sort of side of things as well. The other side of it that we sort of talked about quite a lot is the changing ways in which students are engaging in classrooms. And you sort of touched on that there. And, we operate 9 to 5, we Monday to Friday. Some people are going down sort of the HyFlex route of any students can go log on to a classroom from where they want. Is that something that you're looking at? Are you looking at it in other ways? I could go down a whole avenue of AI as
Sure.
well, and
Yeah.
things like that. I guess HyFlex first, is that something that is a priority at Baby State? Are you looking at other ways to work it?
Yeah. We have looked into that. We've looked at things like, okay, so let's offer like, I don't know, like a 2 week class, like a really intensive 2 week class, or let's offer only Saturdays, or let's offer, I don't know, like a bunch of alternate schedules. So we've looked at a lot of things like that. We also have like our both asynchronous and synchronous online classes, of course. This is a really tough one that I think I think we're still in the throes of, because you really are fighting two battles. Like it's a war on two fronts, which is you've got you've got the students that are. So I'll just use this statistics. Like if you look at our institution, we're primarily like just like regular brick and mortar. We're not online. But if you look at our campus, roughly 75% of our students are going to take an online class, at least one at some point, right? So like most of our students are these kind of hybrid students that are taking online and face-to-face classes. Then you've got kind of this traditional idea that online is somehow inferior, or we don't want to be just an online institution. And so you're kind of battling that narrative as well. And the faculty who came up, like, I think this has just always been the case. Like you have, like, not to be all like ageist or anything, but like you have older faculty who came up in a certain way and are used to learning in a certain way, and then you have younger students that are virtually children coming up, saying that's not going to work for me. And so you have it's this like friction, right? And so there are those sorts of things I think that we have that keep us from being as effective as we could be in these hybrid type formats. You'll have your innovative faculty who are like, yeah, this is what the students, I'm going to take this, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And then you have faculty who are like, this is the way we teach X, Y, or Z like program. This is the way it is done. You're not going to go out in the field and see it any different. This is how it is done. And so there's this constant battle. And I don't know that it's any different than what it might have been like prior to now. I think it's much, from my point of view, just given a lot of the challenges and things that have like COVID and like economies and like things like that, like cliffs, all of these things, like given all those things, from my point of view, I think it's coming to a head in a different way than it has in the past. But I think we're still kind of in the throes of it. So I think we're thrashing at it, if that makes sense.
Mm. So do you think, just out of interest then, that the pushback large, from this, or the friction from the hybrid model, is large to do with like engagement with online classes, or where do you think that kind of root of that friction is, or like why people don't want students to be in online classes, from your opinion?
Yeah, I think there's this narrative that an online class cannot be
Mm.
as engaging and cannot give the student the same um, experience and the same knowledge that a face-to-face class taught with a expert in the field can do, right?
Mm.
And so I think it's partly that, and I'm by no means an expert in this, but I just think that there are these narratives of like online is different. What you do is different. The even just the interaction with people, which we know when students graduate from college, you got to go get jobs and you got to interact with people. So that's like we have to have that. So how do we balance those sorts of things? Like research methods. I teach research methods. How do I get them engaged in a research project with a group in an online environment? And I'm sure that there are people out there that have done this, and so it's more of like a rhetorical question. Like I think that's what we run up against, and some people have like the creativity and spark to do that, and some people don't, right? Because some of us have passion for our jobs, and some of us are just working a job. So, like I think it's partly some of those things that come into play.
Yeah, no, of course. Sorry, James, to interrupt
No,
you.
absolutely. It's a big challenge, and we sort of have this as a company as well. So we're a company of about 130 people now, and I would say maybe 65 to 70 of us live in and around Leeds, which is the city that our office is in. Everybody else is remote. That's right the way across the country, plus abroad as well. And so working in this sort of hybrid environment where some people are going to conferences, a lot of us will go into the office once a week, but then people like Olivia live in London, and so we'll see each other once every month to 3 months. And so it can be really difficult to have that sense of belonging, have that sense of engagement and things. And we've managed to get around it or start to tackle things like that by making sure that people are having those moments together. Each team has a budget to go together and do an activity, a team building thing every quarter and things just to keep that sense of belonging and community. But I imagine it's a lot more difficult in a higher education space where you're trying to get students to be engaged with things, but they're also a customer as well, rather than we're in an employee relationship where
Mm.
we are told, go and do this because it's going to be great, and we go and do it and it is great, versus a student that actually has all these other things outside of work and outside of studies and may not necessarily have that same obligation as someone like us that is paid to be there 10 till 6, for example. So yeah, I think it's a really it is a big challenge for sure.
I mean, even the little nuances in conversation where you sat in class and you want to turn to your friend and say, "What did they just say? What did the
Yeah.
lecturer say?" You're missing out.
What was that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what was
Did
that?
you get that? Yeah.
yeah.
I guess in a way you're missing out, but also you get flexibility, which is essential if you've got partially online classes as well. So yeah, it's got pros and cons. It's tricky.
It's really interesting. And I will tell you that our students like clamor for it. So when you look at results, like the qualitative results in particular of our like students, we do a belonging survey every semester, and um, we have other ways that we capture student feedback, and they will constantly clamor for those sorts of things, right? We will have our like our non-traditional students, maybe like older in age, they have like a family and children and things like that, and jobs 9 to 5, and like can only come at night and all of those. And then we also have our online students that may or may not be in the state, or local in any way, like you guys are talking about, and they clamor and say, like, we see all of these engagement activities that people can engage in, but there's nothing for us. And so it's interesting because we do offer a lot, of course, at institutions, and you'll get a handful of students that will take you up on that, right? But
Mm.
then when you look at the feedback, again, they're asking for it. And so it's really, really strange because it's really, really hard to do. Yeah, it's just really, really hard to do. I don't know how you balance all of those variables to get folks what they need, right? And I think that's part of the
Mm,
complexity with the hybrid models as well, is like every one of these models that we do a little bit differently, or like everything that we cater to, means that we've got to add those resources. And again, going back to like higher ed's under attack a little bit, our budgets aren't growing, like so it's like, how do you do all of these things that you want to do? So it gets to be like, it's part of the fun, right? But it's also like just wickedly challenging.
mm. I mean, you mentioned qualitative analysis, and I'm a bit rusty when it comes to all different research methods, trust me. But what's kind of the role of qualitative analysis? So we were talking a little bit about how do you understand why students maybe coming in for a semester or two, dropping out, and we turn to like quantitative analysis or correlational data. But what is there a role for like maybe like surveys or thematic analysis or something that brings the students' kind of opinions and voices forward, or is it just hard to scale?
Yeah, this is one that I'm actually really excited about AI, because this ha AI has helped a roadblock here in ways that nothing else has been able to do. So I'm very excited about it, which I don't usually say about AI, but in this case I will, because like we have like this giant backlog of qualitative analyses, and if you've done it, like it is so hard to do and it's so time consuming to do. And when I am asked to use my resources, right, I have this finite number of resources. Typically, I'm asked to prioritize like the hard data, if you will, like the numeric data, the quantitative data. I'm asked to, because people will be like, I'm headed into this board of trustees meeting. I need this number, or I'm
Mhm.
going down to the legislator. They asked us these things. Can you give us these numbers? And it's usually always like, what's the percentage of this? How many of these did we do? Was our conversion on this? And it's all numbers, 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 numbers. So in the past, historically, we've had this like backlog because I don't have a qualitative researcher on my staff. I just have my analysts, right? So it's all about the data and the quantitative data. So, but AI has like made this fun again, and so I'm very excited about this because I think yes, we have started to be able to use this and use those qualitative results a lot better. One way that we are kind of currently doing it, we're not completed, but we started to look at those engagement things and say, what are the themes that students are saying? We have these themes, like but what are the students actually saying? And so we've been able to use like using some AI and to help us code and look for the themes and stuff. We've been able to come up with some of those things to try and see if we can, number one, use this data that we're gathering. Like I have a hard time. It's always kind of been it's bothered me that we gather this data and on students or from students, and then we don't use it, right? So number
Mm,
one, like I feel like we're almost fulfilling this ethical thing, like where we're saying, okay, look, you gave us this, and we are actually using it. But then number two, we're able to use it to say, like, students are saying this, let's try it. So that's I'm actually really, really excited about that. I think it's going to come back around and we're going to be able to use a lot more of that data.
mm. It's fascinating, isn't it? Like finding a role for both. Because so I used to do thematic analysis, and it took, very, very long time.
Yes.
Very rich data, but takes a long time because of course you're looking for themes, and how are you going to do that on a large scale if you've got the whole
Yeah.
student population? Um, so when you're saying using AI, then sorry, so would it be to try and like pick out the themes then? But I mean, is it an issue using AI because then are they able to find the right themes if it's almost not human doing it, or
Yeah. This has become one of my little hobbies. Maybe this is
yeah,
my new hobby, is training the AI to do the qualitative stuff. And it's kind of fun because there are things you can do, right? Like I do things where I ask it to give me counts of things. Like you're saying this is a theme. Okay, well, how many times did you find it? And then give me like your best exemplars of what it is, right? And tell me how many, like what, like there's pros and cons to it. And you really got to train it. Like in the beginning, I was finding that the tool was truncating. So I would give it like a sheet with, I don't know, 10 pages because qualitative stuff can be long, and it would use like 7 of those. And I don't know what the cut point is. And so like it's finding ways like that. You just constantly have to be validating, which is
mm,
no different than anything else. It's just a different way of validating. But it's been really fun to see um, we've been running some of these kind of side by side where I will like we have these committees and they've asked to do these thematic analyses. So I've been like, okay, here you go, here's the data, and then kind of done my own thing on like the behind the scenes with the AI and then compared how they match. And I'm really impressed with that part of it and really excited about it because I think you can't just say like analyze this like a qualitative researcher and think it's going to do it. But
Yeah.
if you play with it and you say, and you give it the prompts and you have it be like a kind of multi-layered conversation, I've had pretty good luck. I think it's fun.
Fascinating. So you're almost trying to train, because I'm thinking, how do you pick out emotive words? Like, so is that what it'd be doing? It'd be going, analyze to pick out, how are students feeling about this? So feeling
Yes.
about attending classes, and then it's got to try and perceive that or try and that. It's just
Yep. And it
fascinating.
tends,
Yeah.
I've found that it tends to be like negative, and so you have to train it to do that. Like, I don't just want the bad stuff. You
Yeah.
got to tell me the good stuff too, right? So there's just things like that, but that it seems like these tools are kind of they lean towards one way or the other, and so figuring all that out has been fun.
Yeah, I think it's the art of prompt engineering, or it's the science, I guess, is probably the better way of explaining it. I think it's only going to become more important. I think what I've found is using it to not replace your work, but use it to validate and sort of use it as almost that co-worker rather than sort of your sort of assistant. It's it takes a while to get there, but once you start sort of getting those results, it's super rewarding. I was thinking about the power of like qualitative re, re, analyses and things, and even small things that you can pick out from that sort of thing can be so valuable. Like I think back to at one of the libraries at my university, the cafe was horrible, and so no one went there because you were only going to get horrible food, and it was a bit of
Yeah,
a walk.
right.
The university won't know that through, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think of our libraries? If students are putting 2, they're not going to go, oh, it's the sandwiches or it's the coffee. But actually, that one small change down the line, all of a sudden expanded over the 30,000 students there. If 5 students go more often, their grades increase, and you've retained 2 of those from a change in bread. Like
Yeah.
it's so amazing what that sort of butterfly effect can be. So to be able to get that sort of information, pairing that then with the big picture ideas and things like that, I think it's super valuable. I get sort of a wrapping up sort of question. You've been through a huge project here over years to get to a point where we've got this massive data that we can use, both qualitative, quantitative, it's coming into the hands now. We're getting to that going over the hill sort of moment. There's going to be people listening to this that are going to have 2 reactions. One is going to be, this is incredible. I can't wait to get started. This is super inspiring. The other side is going to be, this is super inspiring. I can't wait to get excited. Oh, this seems really daunting.
Sure.
What's your advice to those people that are about to start this journey and go, where do I start? How do I get to that point?
Pick something. And that seems really silly to say, but I will tell you the first analysis I ran, which was 15 years ago or more, was looking at our Hispanic students who um, either participated in community-based research, or sorry, I'm sorry, community engaged learning or didn't. And that was it. And it looked at like, is this protective or not? And that was it. And I was able to, and the reason I did that, so this is maybe like part 2 of it, pick something with a stakeholder that is engaged. So I was able to pick that and in kind of with the stakeholder, show that information, and then like she presented it all over the place at all sorts of conferences and stuff like that. And so I was able to build the momentum from these small things because I paired a pretty basic analysis with the right stakeholder. And then from there, other stakeholders are like, well, I want that and I want that. And eventually it becomes, well, I can't do that until I get more resources. So there's a backlog now, right? And so it's like this grassroots thing. I think if you are that person that's like, I don't know how to do, right? I don't know how to do this, or like, I don't know how to start it. I think that's what I would say. It doesn't have to be like a campus wide enterprise changing thing. It can be one thing or two things, or like, some well-placed marketing about it or something like that. So it's getting the right stakeholders together that see the value in it and then doing your best to show them that value. So, and that's that part of like translating it. I couldn't say, hey, person X, like this, I found this, and here's the statistics behind it. This was statistically significant, blah, blah, blah. I had to say, it looks like you're going to get a 12% increase in retention if you encourage people to do this, or something like that, right? So, it had to be that like sound bite at that point. And that is what I would say to people that don't know where to start or don't know how to get this done. Like if you have the interest and you have the knowledge, or somebody that has the knowledge to run the stats, then just start where you can and start small, and then like tell the heck out of that story, right? Like that's the key. Don't just run it. You got to tell the heck out of it. You got to really be able to translate that to what I would say like a naive stakeholder. That's what I would say. Like somebody who isn't doing these data things all day long.
I think that's brilliant advice. It's that almost that Rome wasn't built in a day sort of thing, where you got this huge project coming up. Start small, find that ally that's going to take that work and shout about it to the right people, or to as many people as possible. Heather, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Today. It's been incredibly insightful. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I can see
you guys are great. Thank you. That's
smiling away as well. Enjoyed it.
I can talk about this stuff all day long. So thank you for allowing me to.
Yeah, well, we'd love to have you on maybe in a year's time, see what, other amazing findings we've got. While we're coming to this point coming over the hill, it'd be great to sort of hear some of those insights in about a year's time. Maybe we do a Happy New Year 2027 episode.
That'd be lovely. By then we should have like a full-on training regime in place. So that would be lovely.
Well, that'd be great to learn about. Heather, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us on Learning Outcome Leaders. We hope you found the conversation valuable and that it gave you some ideas for how you can elevate your own student experience.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Until next time, have an amazing day.